Okay, so hello everybody, welcome to Monoglossia. We have a special guest today. It's Elizabeth from RealSpanish, which is a website as well as a YouTube channel. So thank you very much for being here, Elizabeth.
It's a pleasure.
Can you please firstly introduce yourself and RealSpanish?
Okay, well, my name is Elizabeth Coelho, and my last name is Portuguese, but I'm not Portuguese. I am British, as you probably can tell from my accent. And I was a language teacher both in Britain and later in Bulgaria, teaching English, and later in Canada, where I lived for many years, and I taught English as a second language to students from other countries who had to learn English to do school, which is quite a challenge to be learning the curriculum when you're learning the language of the curriculum at the same time. And I really admired my students for their amazing ability to do that and to overcome all kinds of difficulties and obstacles that they encountered. Later, I ended up teaching teachers at the University of Toronto and taught there for a few years. And then I came here to live in Spain. I live in Barcelona. I started learning Spanish. Well, I should back up a bit. I was a good student of languages, both at school and in other countries where I lived. And I started being invited to give talks to teachers in Spain. And I did it in English. And my first gig was actually in the Basque country, where the language of instruction is not Spanish, but Basque, or at least in many schools, it's Basque. And so I had the rather strange experience of delivering my lecture, or my talk, with PowerPoint, all in English. And at the back of the room, there were some translation cabins, they were called cabins, where the interpreters sat. And the process was that I spoke in English, a Spanish interpreter interpreted into Spanish. The teachers were all wearing headphones, so they could hear it in Spanish, or they could choose to hear it in Basque. And in that case, the Spanish interpreter spoke, and then the Basque interpreter interpreted from the Spanish to Basque. So from English to Spanish to Basque. And I had no direct communication with the audience. I mean, they could see me, but they couldn't hear my voice. And I decided this was not communication. I was used to a very different way of teaching, workshop-based, very interactive kinds of sessions. And this was me standing on a stage, addressing a few hundred people who couldn't even hear my voice. And so when I kept on being invited, I decided, well, I'd just better learn Spanish then, because everybody in Spain understands and uses Spanish, even though their first language may be Basque or Catalan in Catalonia, where I'm living. And so I started learning Spanish in Toronto, and then I came to Spain a couple of times. I went to Mexico, I went to Cuba to do these 2-week intensive courses that they do for foreigners, and that was very, very helpful. And eventually I started giving my talks in Spain in Spanish. And I prepared for those talks with a Spanish teacher who sat with me side by side as we went through all my PowerPoints. And although I believe my accent was terrible and still is, people were so appreciative that I'd made the effort. You know, they came up afterwards and said, that was so good, we could hear you. We could hear the tone of your voice. Thank you so much for that. So that made me feel great about learning Spanish. And then later I came to live here, as I said, and I was looking for classes because by now I was at a fairly advanced level, at least as far as vocabulary and grammar were concerned, especially the reading and writing. But I realized that, you know, if I was going to live here, I had to learn the language in a much more colloquial nature. I needed to understand what people were saying when they were speaking at normal speaker speed and not at teacher speed, which is quite different. Yeah, and by chance, one day, I came across a TV series. It's called Cuéntame cómo pasó, Tell Me How It Was, or tell me how it happened. And it's a very popular TV show here in Spain. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
No, I
No.
know several. I know they're very nice, like comedies, sitcoms,
Yes.
but I don't know. Other than that, I'm not familiar with Spanish shows.
Well, this series is very good. It's won lots of prizes, and it's about a family in the 1960s when Franco was still very much in charge in Spain, and there was a lot of repression, political repression, and it's the story of a family and their teenage kids going through what was a gradual change. In all of Europe at that time, in 1968, all of the students were protesting everywhere. And they started to do so in Spain. And it's about this time of great change in Spain, but it's also very funny. And I started using it as my linguistic resource. Couldn't find a teacher. The courses were not advanced enough for me. The school said, go away, or get a private teacher. And I've never really enjoyed having individual classes. I like to be in a group. Anyway, I found this TV show. I kind of understood it, and it was fun. And what I started to do was to select very short scenes and study them in depth by myself with a dictionary. And of course, I was able to switch from the TV show to an online dictionary because I was watching the program on my computer, streaming, not live. And I would study the vocabulary, I would make notes. There was a transcript that I could download. I found the transcript actually was not that helpful because, as you know, with subtitling and transcript, sometimes it's the meaning that's communicated, but it's not the actual same words. So then I corrected the transcript according to what I was hearing. I focused on the vocabulary. I looked up loads of expressions. Some of them I had to go to Google to find out what they meant. So I would end up with a text, which was video, of about 1,000 words. And I would study that in depth, and I would listen and read and listen and read and listen and read several times until I could understand every single word. I could separate it out from the stream of words, and I could understand every word. So I was a very diligent student, but I had fun doing it because I could feel myself getting a better ear for what people were saying, speaking at normal speed. I was able, now and then, to actually use a new expression in a conversation, and that made me feel fantastic. And later on, I thought, this approach might work for other people too. And I began to think about ways of using video clips for this kind of intensive focus. I mean, I watched the whole program and I enjoyed it, but I just focused on one tiny piece for study. And so that's basically what we've done in Real Spanish. We've taken video clips from TV shows and from movies, very short clips, 3-4 minutes, and we've analyzed them completely with some grammar points, the vocabulary, the expressions, some cultural information, and all of that is combined in a lesson. And that's what Real Spanish is all about. And then more recently, we've been taking some of that material and developing some mini lessons, we call them, for posting on YouTube. And I don't know if you've seen some of those.
Yeah, I did.
Shorter, because not everybody wants to study in depth. So this was a way of giving people sort of bite-sized pieces of Spanish to deal with on their phone on the metro, for example.
Yes, exactly. It's really convenient for me to doing work online, but then from time to time I take a break, I play a short video. It just works so well.
Yeah. So that's what Real Spanish is all about. I'm really drawing on my experience as a language teacher and as a language student. And I work, of course, I'm not a native speaker, so I'm working together with a Spanish teacher, a native Spanish teacher, and all of my other collaborators, like video editors, voiceover people, and so on. They are all Spanish speaking. So, and my web designer too. So that has helped enormously with my vocabulary. And just working on these expressions, I'm still learning from the lessons I create with Gemma, my partner. I'm still learning Spanish, so it's been quite an amazing experience. I haven't enjoyed all of it. I don't like the marketing part. I'm no good at it. I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm not that knowledgeable about web design, so I sometimes ask stupid questions or ask for things that are not possible. But I have learned a lot. Our latest venture is podcasts. We've decided to go into that. So we're working on our first podcast course. The advantage of that is that I think it's easier for people who are learning while they're moving, on the train or whatever, if they don't have to follow the visual, because the screen on a phone is so small.
Yeah.
But the other advantage, as far as I'm concerned, is the much lower cost of getting the rights to use the material. To use a few minutes of a film or a TV show costs thousands of euros. I started this without knowing that. If I had known how much material was going to cost in the beginning, I would have had a different approach, maybe started with the mini lessons instead. So it has been an extremely expensive venture, and we're hoping that the YouTube videos and a Facebook presence will help people get to know us. We think we have a great product, but if nobody knows about it, then it's not
the marketing aspect. Sadly,
yes.
It's not always very obvious, like the link between how famous or how quickly you get famous and the quality of your work. Well, I
know you have your own channel.
Yes.
And one thing I have learned is that I've been reading watching lots of YouTube videos about how to use YouTube. And one of the things they say is that you need to build up a presence before YouTube will even notice you. You need to have maybe 30 or 40 videos up there in order for YouTube to start directing people to your channel. Building an audience, that's the hard thing. You have to keep, well, from what I've seen in the tutorials, you have to post regularly, consistently. So we've now started posting once a week, short videos, 3 to 6 minutes long. And we are getting, slowly, we are getting more people that way, because they start to expect to see you. So we publish at the same time, on the same day, every week. And, a wide variety of video content, but all with a focus mainly on colloquial language.
Yes. I love that aspect of the podcast too, which I took Cardumen. Exactly like you said, it was very colloquial, it was really modern reality, including the coronavirus situation. And I love the style of it. It was a bit like the For Dummies series, like including some information that's related, like by the way, and also really respectful for the previous knowledge of the learner. Like, by the way, surely you know the difference between specie and especia, for instance. And then the grammar, which was really complex, of course, the subjunctive, probably the most important. That's really not present in many other languages. It was great to see this again too. And so I can see further into your ideas behind this course and how your own experience as a learner inspired you.
Definitely. Well, the other thing that we're trying to do is to reach out to a learner that's often not very well served. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Advanced learners do find it difficult to continue learning, because most language schools and most online courses go up to about B2, which is sort of high intermediate level. I would say I have level C1, but I don't want to be stuck there. I want to continue. And I really felt this was a niche of people who were not being well served. the best way for them to continue, of course, is to go and live in a Spanish-speaking environment, but you can't always do that. So we decided to take pieces of authentic language and use this intensive approach. And as it happened, the writer of the first story that we did, the one that you mentioned, Cardumen, she lives in Barcelona. I know her. I met her, and she showed me her own channel, where she's got sort of static videos with photos to accompany a reading of her story. And I read the story and I thought, well, wow, this would be fantastic, because it's full of colloquial language, it's full of current information about the coronavirus pandemic. And so we did. We decided to work with her stories. So the first podcast course will be 5 lessons based on different short stories by Julia. And later I'm thinking of doing some with some newspaper stories from El País, which is the major newspaper in Spain. Newspaper language might be the most difficult for many people. It certainly is for me. Journalism has its own style, especially in Spain. It's quite formal. And then every now and then you'll find a cultural reference that you just don't get at all. All of the reporting about politics is really quite difficult because you just don't know enough about the background. So
I guess that's why there are all these sites like News in Levels that kind of make articles easier to get by foreigners.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what we're working on right now, as well as our weekly uploads to YouTube. Yeah.
I see. Great. So having just taken Cardumen, what would you advise me to do next from your content?
Oh, well, I think you should continue with that course, because we are very, what you worked with was the field test version. And thank you so much for your comments, and to everybody else who tested the material for us. The comments were very, very helpful. So we've taken it down now and we're revising it. As you may realize, that story, what you read, was only one half of the story. There's another half. And the reason we did it in 2 was because there was just so much content. We thought, well, this will be overwhelming to do twice the amount of material that you worked with. It would be too much. So we divided the story into 2 parts. The first one is now revised and ready to upload. The second will be uploading, I hope, by the end of this week or early next week. And then we've got 3 more stories in the works for that course. So what we've decided to do is to publish in stages, in installments. So very soon you'll be able to get the second lesson online. I'm sorry, you'll have to pay, because the field test was the free version.
This was very generous. It was really lovely to be able to test your content. It is so unique. It's rare to have this opportunity.
We do have other free material online. There's another course called Español con Cine, and it's focused on an animated video, an animated film, but for adults, called Arrugas, which means wrinkles, and it's about 2 old men in a residence for seniors and the relationship that builds between them. And it's a very moving and often quite funny but sad story. Well, the first lesson of that course is also available free, and always will be, because we need free material available to entice people to try. So anyway, within a week or so, you should be able to buy the whole course of Cardumen and other stories, but we'll be sending the additional lessons one by one as they get published. So of course we'll offer a special low price for that, because you've got to wait a bit to get all of the installments. Well, I decided if Dickens could do it, he published all his novels in installments. So, well, why can't we?
Yes. I'm just reading Oliver Twist to my son, by the way. Got me thinking.
Yeah, well, his readers used to wait weekly for his installments. And one of the reasons that there are sometimes problems where characters drop out, or a thread isn't continued is because he did that. He would publish an installment without necessarily knowing what was going to be in the next one. So sometimes there are bits in his stories that just don't quite match up. And it's an interesting insight into the process of writing, actually.
Yes, I guess maybe there was a practical aspect, but as well a creative one.
Well, I think it means that he wasn't revising in the way that we would think of it. We would think that you revise the whole novel from beginning to end. And obviously he wasn't doing that. He would revise a chapter and send it off and then write another chapter, but he never actually revised the whole novel all in one go, which is normally what happens in the editing process.
Yes.
Yeah, but people loved his stories anyway, and I do. I'm very fond of Dickens.
Me too. Yeah. It's one of my favorites. I actually studied literature at university. I went to the University of Essex in the UK. Yes. It has been really interesting talking to Elizabeth about her experience in Bulgaria as well, which I was really amazed to hear about. She was English teacher in high school in my home country. So yes, I have also lived in the UK for a few years. So this is an interesting point. All right. So you did share about the future plans. Is there anything else? I also noticed that the website is kind of changing in terms of layout. It is
yes.
More intuitive.
That's been a challenge too. We have changed websites. So at first we were on a platform where you can upload your courses, and it was very easy to use, but our courses really weren't getting much, they weren't very visible. There was no marketing really. And we decided we needed our own website, and it's taken a while to develop. So we have our own website, and all of our material is now hosted there, all in one place. So we can control how it looks and how it's available. But, I suppose this is always the case. When you start a new website, there are always glitches, little things. They seem little to the designer, but they seem huge to me or to users, where a bit of navigation goes wrong and you don't end up where you expect to, and so on. And I was getting quite upset about all this. And then people told me, no, that's normal. That's the way it is, Yes. So I'm trying to be more laid back about it now, and I'm just hoping that users will stay with us and continue to access our stuff.
Yes, well, I certainly will.
Yeah, that's great.
I'll be looking forward to the next parts of the podcasts and new stories. All right, so I'm going to put links to RealSpanish as well as the YouTube channel. So I'll ask my viewers to please subscribe for some regular Spanish content, link to interesting facts in colloquial Spanish language. And thank you very much, Elizabeth, for joining me.
Thank you.
It's been lovely talking to you.
Igualmente.
Igualmente. Same.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. And I'll keep you informed about my progress on your website.
Yes, it sounds interesting. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.